Been on a few of those trips where it's just like, how can we cover this distance and not be fighting? By the time we get to my parents' house, get that thing wrapped up and get back home successfully without a breakup. So I'm aware. I'm aware of how that works. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me for yet another episode of the Everyman Movie Review. I would like to think that after watching a few of these, maybe a few dozen of these, you'll get an insight not only into the movies that I like and movies that you should check out or avoid, but also into me and who I am as a person. And the fact that I would follow up Borat, subsequent movie film, with Trial of the Chicago 7, a very historically based movie, with what we're going to do this week, I hope gives you some insight. Because this week we are going to be talking about I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the latest movie from Charlie Kaufman. If you don't know the name Charlie Kaufman, he has been involved in such movies as Adaptation, where he wrote himself into the screenplay, writing the screenplay based on the book, and being Jon Malkovich, where John Cusack finds a door in his building that leads into the mind and lets you control the body of Jon Malkovich for 15 minutes. And Jon Malkovich, the actual actor, is in that movie. So, we have an adventure ahead of us, let me tell you. Before we get too far into it though, let's get through the pleasantry, shall we? I'm Thinking of Ending Things was directed by Charlie Kaufman. It was also written by Charlie Kaufman, and is based on a book by Ian Reid. It is starring Jesse Plemons as Jake, Jessie Buckley as Young Woman, or Lucy, or Amy. We're going to get to that. Toni Collette as the mother, David Thewlis as the father, and Guy Boyd as the janitor. So I've been thinking about how I can do this review and not give away too much, but still get you excited about the movie if you should be excited about it. And I feel like I'm going to do this. I am going to go through the movie chronologically. At some point I'm going to cut to a spoiler section where I'll finish the chronological. I'll also talk about some other things involved in this movie in the spoiler section. Then we'll come back and we'll finish up with a review, just basically my thoughts on the movie as a whole and whether or not you should check it out. Are you ready? Let's go. So we open the movie with young woman, someone we later on hear named Lucy, entering a car with her boyfriend Jake. They are starting a road trip, which seems like a very long road trip, to go see Jake's parents. And they're going to see them only for dinner. And it seems like a really long drive just to have dinner with them, but I've been in those relationships before. I know how it is. You live in the city, the parents live way out in the country, and it's just one of those things you have to do. So as they're on this long drive, we start with the inner monologue of Lucy, and Lucy is thinking of ending things. In fact, the first line of the movie, if I remember correctly, is, I'm thinking of ending things. Which, if you like those moments where you're like, oh, they said the name of the movie! You get one of those in this one. And as they continue to drive along, Lucy seems to slip into more and more deep philosophical thought, while Jake is trying to basically make small talk. And they reach a point where it's just commenting about the things on the side of the road and disagreements, and during the course of the journey, they have a very wide-ranging conversation. And this in and of itself is not weird. I've been on those trips before. Again, I lived in the city of Baltimore. My parents lived way out in the country, about 90 minutes away. So been on a few of those trips where it's just like, how can we cover this distance and not be fighting? By the time we get to my parents' house, get that thing wrapped up and get back home successfully without a breakup. So I'm aware. I'm aware of how that works. But eventually they do, after much haranguing amongst themselves, reach Jake's parents' house. However, the weather has started to turn. When they left, it was a sunny but cold winter day. By the time they've reached there, snow has started and the weather has really turned on them. When they first arrive, they can't find Jake's parents, and after calling out for a while, they realize, oh, they're still upstairs getting ready. Jake explains they have a very strict set. This is how things are done. We don't go upstairs. They'll come downstairs. We'll have dinner, blah, blah, blah. And so he goes upstairs to check on them. Lucy goes around the house and starts checking things out. And she finds many interesting things, like a picture of Jake from when he was a kid who looks suspiciously like her. And a really cute, quaint home with some nail marks on the basement door that are questionable. And Jake says, joining her again, says, the dog must have left those. And we've not seen or heard from a dog the entire time. If you've ever had a dog, you know, usually when someone enters, they rush you. And right at the moment that he says, those must have been from the dog, a dog shows up. And then does this very weird shake-off thing where it doesn't stop shaking, it just continues to shake. But Jake suggests that they not only continue the tour of the house, which they do, but go out to the barn as well, so he can share some stories from his childhood. And they go out, and he talks about doing chores and kind of growing up on a farm, and then decides to share a disturbing story about how they had a couple of pigs, and that the pigs died, and he doesn't want to tell the story, and she presses him, and then come to find out they overfed the pigs, and then the pigs ended up getting maggots in their stomach while they were still alive, which is bad. But at some point they had to get rid of all the animals, and then it stopped really being like that kind of farm and just went to like farming. So they return to the house and begin what must be the most awkward dinner ever captured on film. And obviously this is fictional, it's a movie, it's not like a documentary, but oh boy, that dinner is awkward. Just everybody starts out trying to be super polite, and things just turn. And that's when things also go from like weird to like, in the movie, because Jake calls her by a different name. She talks about a different career than she talked about in the car. And both parents start to weirdly change from when we first met them. And that is about as far as I can go without giving too much away. So, if you want to catch this movie without any spoilers, and let me just say now, I don't think the spoilers are going to hurt you. Either you're probably going to want to watch it or you're probably not going to want to watch it. But the choice is up to you. If you'd like to skip the spoilers, jump down to the time down below because the spoilers are coming at you right now. So things go super weird starting at that moment. And that's because the parents start to age real rapidly. Lucy, the young woman, starts to change clothes, change jewelry, start talking about different jobs, different hobbies, things that she likes. And Jake seems completely unbothered by everything that is happening around him. And you as the viewer, me as the viewer, I was like, what is going on with this movie right now? And then Jake just out of whole cloth makes up stuff that contradicts what he said before, like a different job, everything just starts to change. And the parents are aging very much in front of them, and no one seems to notice. And also, they have this feast laid out in front of them, and it's been like a 10-minute dinner, and no one's touched that much, and then all of a sudden it's time to clear the table. And I was just like, what's going on? But while his mom is finishing up with the dinner, I guess, Jake takes her on a tour of the house. She sees his childhood bedroom. She sees some weird stuff, like movies and books and toys from his childhood. And then they go out to the parlor, which is the only room she'd been in previously. And they sit down, and the parents are obviously much older now. And mom is starting to lose it. Dad's starting to lose it. They have a little cake. And Lucy is just pressing because she needs to go home. She needs to be home by that night. And Jake's trying to put her off. And he says, he's got to do a couple things and then they'll go. Parents and Jake disappear upstairs. Seems like it's been a while. Lucy goes to check. Parents are much older now. And she has a little exchange with mom. She has a little exchange with dad. Mom sends her down to the basement with like a nightshirt. And she like goes and puts it in the laundry and finds like a whole laundry bin full of the same shirt. And there's just weird stuff in the basement. And then she comes back out, and it's possible that the parents are dead. They're just not there. Mom is like super old at one point and in a wheelchair, and dad is just like dementia patient. And Jake, completely unbothered by all of this. Nothing has changed. She also seems remarkably unbothered by all of this that's happening. Obviously, she notes it, but unbothered by it. And then finally, they're in the car and they're headed home. And on the way home, the philosophical conversations continue. Lucy seems to change personalities at random. Cigarettes appear and disappear. Clothing changes. Jobs change once again. Opinions about literature and movies and things change. They decide to stop and get ice cream. Immediately after stopping, after having one bite, after getting 2 large ice creams, they decide they don't want it. By the way, there's a super weird exchange where Jake refuses to talk to anyone at the ice cream stand. Why? Don't know. Third girl, so there's two girls working there. They're twins, and none of them wants to help Lucy at all. Finally, a third girl comes up, and then as part of the exchange, she's just like, "You can leave. You don't have to be stuck here." I'm like, what? What is going on, man? Anyway, take a couple bites of the ice cream. Decide they don't want it. Need to look for a trash can. But it's a highway. Where are you going to find a trash can? He remembers, oh, my high school's right down here. So he goes down to the high school. Disappears for a while to go drop the ice cream off in a trash can. When he gets back, he realizes janitor's watching him. Oh, let me skip this part. Interspersed with this are scenes of a janitor watching a practice of Oklahoma, eating lunch and watching a romantic movie and listening to music and just doing his job. Anyway, now Jake says, I see a janitor watching us. I'm going to go get that guy. And he rushes off to go do it. And he's gone for a long time. And Lucy gets out to go yell for him and locks herself out of the car. She now has to go in the high school. She also runs into the janitor. He lets her go. She finds Jake. And then we just shift into this musical number where we're in Oklahoma and we're Judd and Curly and we're going to have a whole situation. And then Jake is one of the characters and the janitor is one of the characters and janitor stabs Jake, and then ballet dancers and settle down. We're just seeing the outside of the high school and it's day, and the janitor walks out calmly and lets himself into his car, and he sits down in his car. It starts to get hot, so he takes off all his clothes. He starts seeing scenes from the movie we just watched happening outside the car. And then he sees the pig with the maggots in it. And the pig leads him back in the high school, so he follows it. And he follows it into the auditorium where Jake is there giving a speech. Lucy's in the audience, and everyone has just fake makeup to age themselves up. And it's just exhausting. And then the movie ends. And we're just looking at the truck outside of the high school. And it turns over. That's it. That's the movie. And if that seems pretty complicated, it is. But let's dive into it. Usually I would end the spoilers and bring everybody back in, but we're going to have some stuff to talk about because this is what I've taken from the movie. None of that is real. That's really the spoiler of all of it, is that everything that we see for 90% of the movie is not real. The only things that are real, and the reason I kind of left them out when I went through before, is the janitor. The janitor is an old guy, works at a high school. He watches Oklahoma. He has lunch where there's a movie. And this guy has spent his whole life building up a fantasy. And he's built up a fantasy where his life is more exciting than it really is. And now he's come to the point. I forgot two things too. All right, so Lucy gets 2 calls. And during those 2 calls, the number says Lucy on it. And she answers it. And it's like a recorded message. And basically it ends by saying, there is only one question. There is only one question. And that triggered me later. Once I figured out, kind of got a grasp on what was going on, which wasn't until the movie ended, and I had some time to think about it, that's when I realized that's what this is. The only thing that's real is the janitor. And we see a little bit of his day. And we see that he is all about just building a dream world. And things from his world leak into Jake's world. Like Oklahoma. Like the fact that he saw Oklahoma and there was the dancing and the singing of Oklahoma. That's because he walked past the kids doing Oklahoma. And there's a scene about 2 people meeting and they have this wonderful conversation. It's in the movie while he's eating lunch. And he finds makeup in a bathroom, stage makeup. And that's why everybody has the really poor makeup on, because he found that. There are places where it leaks into his real life. But he has built himself a fantasy life that is so much more than his real life. And in fact, it is my belief that he never had a woman. That Lucy actually represents him trying to come to terms with his perfect woman. Because she changes so drastically. She is a feminist, and then she's a stay-at-home mom, and then she's a movie critic, and he's basically trying to find a place where he can reconcile all the things that he wants from his perfect woman into a single person. Someone who is into theater, and then also into movies, and gerontology to take care of old people, and nuclear physics, and also loves all these things. And it's impossible. You will never find someone who is as good in real life as the dream person you make up in your head. Because there are no rules up here, man. It's all crazy. It's nuts. So they can be all of those things, and a real person can't. And more than that, he's looking to have his wonderful, perfect woman with him, I probably that Jake is the janitor, which is why all the crazy stuff happens and he doesn't really care. He's making up different names for her because different names seem to fit at different times. But he's trying to mold the perfect woman on the ride too, and even there, he tells these disturbing stories which are probably real from his actual youth. And then he's trying to find the moment of his life when introducing this almost perfect woman, but had some flaws, to his parents. And what he realized is what I have realized over the course of my life: there is no perfect time to introduce your girl, perfect or not, to your parents. It's always going to be weird. It's always going to be awkward. And no matter where they are in their life cycle, it's going to be a thing. The very first girl I took home and the last girl I took home were very much the same. My parents reacted the same way. Super nice, a little awkward, too friendly, like all of the same. And it is always that way. So what he's looking to do is to create the perfect girl and drop her into the perfect moment with his perfect parents in that perfect house, and it's just impossible. And what this all comes back to is that the very first thing we hear in the movie is Jake, in the voice of Lucy, talking about a real thing. I'm thinking of ending it. Now, what we think is that Lucy is talking about the relationship with Jake. She talks about, they've been together for a month or so, but it feels like much longer. I think that is him talking about killing himself and how it's been on his mind for a month. He feels like a month, but maybe a little longer than that. And he's trying to reconcile this life that has been a fantasy with what his real life was. And he's just unable to do it. And I'm not sure what the meaning was at the end. It could be that older janitor killing Jake and letting Lucy go is him finally releasing this fantasy, this expectation that his life will live up to the fantasy. And then he goes outside and he has a last moment of reflection of seeing this life, these images of a life that he fantasized, and he lets them go and off he goes. And maybe he's starting to fantasize about other things, like real issues that happened in his life, like the pig and like really being teased by the girls at the ice cream shop. But honestly, that's not where I'm leaning. I am leaning towards the fact that the janitor, who is Jake, comes to this reconciliation, gets rid of his fantasy life, makes the decision that he is going to end his real life, and either does so in the truck or has a heart attack or a stroke or something in the truck before he can do so. And that most of what we've seen is him coming to terms with releasing that fantasy life. And then the whole flashing before his eyes in the truck is life flashing before his eyes. And the pig is somehow teaching him a lesson. He talks earlier when he's talking about the pig as Jake, that the pig taught him a lesson about being slothful and how the dichotomy of life and the maggots and the dead pig and the live pig. And there's a whole lesson in there. But I think that's it. That this pig is leading him towards his next thing, heaven, if you will. And then I realized I had heard the speech from the end of the movie, and I looked into it, and it's actually the speech from the end of A Beautiful Mind, where Russell Crowe is giving his Nobel Prize winning speech to an audience. And it's almost a shot-for-shot remake of that with the people from this movie. And then he sings a song about being lonely, and instead of being the Oklahoma set, it's a set of the bedroom of his house. And I think that's the janitor looking at that and being I have to accept this is my life. And then the movie ends. And if that sounds absolutely insane, it is. And the only reason I would look deeper and not be this is a terrible movie is Charlie Kaufman. Because Adaptation blew my mind when I saw it. It was 2002 or 2003, and I saw that movie and I said, this guy wrote himself into the movie, along with his twin brother, writing the movie that I'm now watching. And I don't know if I can compute that. My adolescent brain at 18 or 19 years old nearly exploded. And then I thought back to Being Jon Malkovich, and I watched it again around that time, and I said, this movie is so much more than I think it is. It's not just a fun movie about John Cusack going into the mind of Jon Malkovich. It is a movie about masculinity and about the male psyche, and there's so much more. And this is just what Charlie Kaufman does. And I wish I could do that. I wish I could get into the complexity of that, but I am a Redbox movie writer. Charlie Kaufman is a Oscar movie writer. And never the twain shall meet, I think. But I also think that the movie's up for interpretation. And the one thing I love about Charlie Kaufman is he never spoon feeds it to you. He never says, this is what you're supposed to get from the movie. He just makes a lot of allusions and he throws in a lot of details. And if you know the details, you know. If you don't, you miss it. Who knows how many things I missed because I just didn't get the reference to them. But somebody else might get them and it might put together the movie in a different way. And there's something interesting about filmmaking that is going to come out to a different conclusion to everyone. Now, it's going to be a similar conclusion, but it's almost going to be personalized to them because of what they took from the movie. And I love that. There's something fantastic about it. But it ain't easy movie watching. That is for sure. All right, so that is way more than we needed to get into, but my mind blew up after watching and thinking about this movie, so now I've spilled that all onto you. Let's bring everybody back in, and I'll wrap up with my final summary of the movie right now. So it's a special kind of episode when the spoiler section is longer than everything else. Sorry about that. After you watch this, if you choose to watch it, go back and just see what I had to say. If you decide after what I say now not to watch it, go back and watch it anyway because it'll probably blow your mind. But without giving anything more away, what I'm going to say about I'm Thinking of Ending Things is this movie is not for everybody. And I am going to tell you right up front, if you don't like being confused, if you don't like existential movies, if you don't like movies that don't give you a clear ending, you're not going to like this. I said in the spoilers, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but I'm going to add it in here. I think Charlie Kaufman intends everyone to take away a similar but different ending from this movie. And it's weird to have a movie that does that, but I think it's excellent. Not everybody is me. And part of my skill, I think, is the ability to express to people things that I enjoy or I don't in a way that will not impact whether or not they will enjoy it, but instead lets them make a judgment on whether they will enjoy it. And I think if you like existential movies that don't have a clear ending or a clear beginning or a clear middle or aren't clear throughout, and movies that leave you confused until you turn it off and sit quietly in the dark to think about it, then you're going to like this movie. If you don't like those things, you will not like this movie. And these are very different movie watchers. I watch a lot of movies that I can really enjoy that are really simple. Hubie Halloween, very simple. I can enjoy it. This movie is very complicated. Vivarium is just like that. Very complicated, and I also enjoy that. There are some movies of both varieties that I don't enjoy because of the reasons I don't enjoy them. If you are a viewer who doesn't like one of those, Hubie Halloween may not be for you, or any of the movies of that type. This, Vivarium, they may not be for you. And it is the biggest warning I can give. I would love everyone to check out this movie. I think it'll blow your mind in ways that you're not ready for. Man, but it is not for everybody. And knowing that, if you think you can't deal with a movie that is not clear, that is not concise, that doesn't kind of just like follow that pattern of first act, first half of the second act, conclusion in the third act, this doesn't have those really. It leaves you confused all the way through. If you can't deal with that, then this movie is going to just leave you wishing you could have your 2 hours back. If that sounds really interesting to you, this is going to be exactly for you. There's not a lot of violence. There's no violence, in fact. There is some very awkward situations. There is some descriptions of things that are kind of disgusting. But all in all, it is a wholesome movie on surface. It's the kind of movie you could sit a kid down in front of because they're going to, if they want to watch it, if they can watch it, they will watch it, and there's nothing superficially that's going to be out of bounds for them. But they might start reading dark philosophy and asking themselves very existential questions when they get to the point that they can start doing that. I tell a story sometimes about how my parents had a book on humanism in the house. And when I was 10, I read that book, and it made me start going down a path that they probably didn't intend. And I found out that when I was 13 or 14, that book was gone. They just took it out and threw it out. And I think they thought he's finally reached the age where he shouldn't be reading things like this, so we're going to throw it out. But he might read it. Little did they know I'd read it years before. This is that kind of movie where it's like, I'll sit you down when I don't think you can understand it and show it to you, but there will be an age where I'm not going to let you see it. And if you're an adult, you get to make that decision for yourself. So good on you. Again, I think everybody should see it. Everyone needs to be challenged like this, and not everybody has been to a movie like that. But understanding that time is precious, and you have choices in your entertainment, this movie ain't going to be for everybody. Choose wisely. And when you do, if you choose not to see it, or if you do watch it, and then you want to hear more about it, come back and watch the spoiler section of the review, because I really want to hear people's thoughts on what they thought about this movie. It's crazy to me. And not only this one, I hope you come back and you talk about the other movies that I review after you watch them too. Go back, watch the spoiler section, put the comments down below, hit a like, hit a dislike. If I got something wrong, if I totally missed it, let me know. Because I want to know whether you're enjoying the movies I'm recommending, if I'm missing the bar, how can I tune these better for you? But not only do I have reviews on this channel, I have a whole lot of other stuff, like parody videos, like vlogs of my life, a whole bunch of stuff. Go check out all that stuff. It's going to be super interesting. If that's not enough content for you, I do a daily podcast called Rob Explains, where we talk about cool, random, and interesting things every day. 5 to 10 minute long podcast, easy to consume, and I think very informational. You'll find that at Rob Explains on Anchor or wherever you get podcasts, and on YouTube. And of course, Rob Explains all over social media. If you're looking for the social media for Everyman Movie Reviews, you're going to find that down below, along with a link where you can watch I'm Thinking of Ending Things if you really do want to watch it. And of course, stay tuned, because in just a couple days, another episode of the show is going to be coming at you. Make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on so you know when it's available. I am taking a little vacation, but that does not mean the episodes will stop. 2 a week, always, without fail. That's what I promise you. So make sure that you look for those new episodes when they come out. Until then, though, take care of yourselves and each other. Have a great week, everybody.